الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله تعالى من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد وبعد. So inshallah we'll continue with the fifth hadith. Inshallah we're going to start the first hadith today in continuation with the Arba'in Nawawiyya. And this is actually an important hadith and we will try to make it easy as much as we can. So the fifth hadith عن أم المؤمنين أم عبد الله عائشة رضي الله عنها قالت قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم من أحدث في أمرنا هذا ما ليس منه فهو رد رواه البخاري ومسلم وفي رواية لمسلم من عمل عملا ليس عليه أمرنا فهو رد. So this is on the authority of the mother of the believers عبد الله عائشة رضي الله عنها, who said the messenger of Allah peace be upon him said صلى الله عليه وسلم, whoever introduces into this affair of ours something that does not belong to it, affair of ours means Islam, it is to be rejected. This is narrated by Bukhari and Muslim, and in a narration by Muslim, whoever does a deed not in accordance with our method or our command, meaning Islam, it is to be rejected. So as we did last time, we're going to start by a short biography for the narrator or the Sahabi, which is this time al-Mu'mineen Aisha radiallahu anha. And when we say al-Mu'mineen, so she is the wife of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is like a title. النبي أولى بالمؤمنين من أنفسهم وأزواجه أمهاتهم. So Aisha radiallahu anha, al-Mu'mineen, Abdullah, and she didn't have any sons. She didn't have a son. And it's not authentic that she got a miscarriage or something like that. No, it was not known that she had a son. And it was in some narrations that she got this kunya, Abdullah, from her niece, or from her nephew, Abdullah ibn Zubayr. So Abdullah ibn Zubayr, who is the son of Asma. Asma is her older sister. So that's why she got Abdullah. So Aisha radiallahu anha, the mother of believers, the daughter of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu. She was born in Islam and migrated to Medina with her parents. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam married her after Khadija radiallahu anha. This was about more than 10 months before Hijrah, before the migration to Medina. So this was when he had this marriage contract with her. Then the wedding was later in the second year of Hijrah, after the Battle of Badr. She narrated a lot of knowledge from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The number of hadith that she narrated about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, her total number of hadith that she said Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said or did or whatever, are 2,210 hadiths. So that's a large amount of hadith. She was the only virgin that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam married. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam married about 13. Only one of them was a virgin, was Aisha radiallahu anha. And he never loved another woman as much as he loved her radiallahu anha sallallahu alaihi wasallam. With the exception for Khadija radiallahu anha, nobody took her, wasn't equal to her for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. No one. And then the hadith reported by Amr ibn al-As radiallahu anhu, when he asked the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which person do you love most? So he said the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam told him directly, Aisha. So he told him, no, from men. He told him her father, which is who? Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu. Imam al-Dhahabi rahimahullah ta'ala said, this is an authentic hadith. Even if the Rawafid don't like it. They just see whichever wall you want and just hit your head there. It's whatever. You like it or not, this is an authentic hadith. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam didn't love except what is pure and good. Imam al-Dhahabi Aydan also mentioned that there is no woman in the Muslim nation, nor in other nations, who is more knowledgeable than her. So she was the most knowledgeable woman of all. And he mentioned that we testify that she is the Prophet's wife, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in this life and hereafter in Jannah, inshallah. And this is something we testify about. And there were some hadith narrated in this meaning. She asked him, who among your wives are in Jannah? He told her, you are from them, or you are in Jannah. So she had this promise, radiallahu anha. Hisham ibn Urwa reported that his father said, so Hisham ibn Urwa, his father is Urwa. Urwa is Ibn Zubayr. So his mother is Asma. Abdullah ibn Zubayr, the oldest, then came Urwa. Urwa is Abdullah Sahabi. Abdullah ibn Zubayr is Sahabi. Urwa is not. Urwa is from Tabi'in. So Urwa, so what is Aisha radiallahu anha to Urwa? She is his aunt, his mother's sister. So he said, and Hisham is his son. So Hisham mentioned that Urwa reported that his father said, I accompanied Aisha radiallahu anha, and I never saw anyone more knowledgeable about an ayah, or a compulsory read, or a sunnah, or poetry, or narrates more poetry than her, or about the days of Arabs, meaning history, or blood lineages, al-ansab, or even judgment, or medicine. So Urwa didn't know how that. So I asked her, my aunt, where did you learn medicine from? How do you learn medicine? So she told him, I get sick, I got a prescription. Other people get sick, they get a prescription. I hear people talk about prescriptions, and I memorize all of that. So she taught herself medicine. Urwa radiallahu anhu mentioned that in one day, she paid 70,000 in sadaqah in one day, while she was just sewing her garment. The side of her garment was just, torn out, and she was just sewing it. And for the money, no, she doesn't. What will she do with it? She doesn't need it. Abdurrahman ibn al-Qasim reported that his father, so Abdurrahman ibn al-Qasim ibn Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr, reported that his father, al-Qasim, said that Aisha radiallahu anha used to fast all days. Of course, not in Eid or Ayyam al-Tashriq, but rather than that, she's fasting, always fasting. She's the wife that the Prophet ﷺ, when he got sick at his death illness, he asked his wives, I want to get treated at Aisha's house. Is it okay? And they told him, yes, it's okay. And then, so the last of his days, Aisha, he spent it in her house. And when he died between her chest and her neck, like in this place here, where he's putting his head. And the last thing that got in his mouth was a siwak that she, chewed on to make it soft for him, ﷺ, and gave it to him. Then Rasulullah ﷺ passed away in that position. And then he was buried in her house. So where he's buried today, ﷺ, this is the house of Aisha radiallahu anha. So, as I mentioned before, it's always good to know about Sahaba and, know about the Sahaba, know about the Tabi'een, know about your ulama. Those are not, don't take them lightly. And of course, this is your homework. Try to read more about Aisha radiallahu anha. She has a big and very wonderful biography. Read it, know more about her. At the end of the day, she's your mom, she's your mother. She's the mother of the believers. And by the way, mother of believers have some rulings up to them that, for example, when Rasulullah ﷺ died, no one can marry any of his wives. But other than that, you cannot see her. No, but actually, the wives of the Prophet ﷺ, this is the thing, that you cannot see anything of them after the hair. Anything of them. Scholars had different opinions after with other women, but for Ummahat al-Mu'mineen, no, you can't see anything from her. So, talking about the hadith, this من أحدث في أمرنا هذا ما ليس منه فهو رد أو من عمل عملا ليس عليه أمرنا فهو رد. So this hadith is the fundamental principle in Islam. And it's a metric for the apparent deeds. The same way, like hadith, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ, actions are according to intentions, is the metric for the inner reality of the actions. So one measures or gives you a metric for what happens inside, the other one gives you a metric for what happens outside. So in the same manner that each action done without sincerity or ikhlas, it's not accepted. Each action that is not done according to Allah's and His Prophet ﷺ command is not accepted. And anything that is innovated in the religion without the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger ﷺ is not considered a part of this religion. It's not accepted at all. It's null. We'll talk more about innovations and their types and the bid'ah and their types and whether in the belief in i'tiqad or in acts of worship, on what is their range, and so more in the 28th hadith of this 14-hour hadith, hadith al-Ibad ibn Sariyah radiyallahu anhu. Anyway, so this hadith that we have on hand now means that every action or deed that is not according to the Islamic legislation is not accepted and invalid. So there is no fruit for it. And it implies that every action that is done according to the Sharia or to the Prophet ﷺ orders is acceptable. So all deeds, anything that you do, must be governed by the ruling of Islam, whether this ruling is an order or a prohibition. So any actions or things that people do can be categorized into two categories. The first are acts of worship, al-ibadat, and transactions, al-muamalat. Okay, like what we deal with each other, like contracts we have, and so on. So let's talk first about the acts of worship. There are some acts of worship. Someone wants to make an act of worship that totally doesn't fall under the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or His Messenger. It's not accepted from whoever does it. And it falls under the threat mentioned in Surah Ash-Shura, أَمْ لَهُمْ شُرَكَاءُ شَرَعُوا لَهُم مِّنَ الدِّينِ مَا لَمْ يَأْذَنْ بِهِ اللَّهُ. Or is it that they have associates who are legislated for them as religion, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not given permission? So whoever worships Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by an action that Allah or His Messenger didn't permit, or that they didn't permit to be an act of worship, this deed is not acceptable. Is not accepted from him. It's the same thing like those pagans who used to pray at Kaaba by whistling and clapping their hands. Or someone who is just worshipping Allah by hearing music or dancing. This is totally unacceptable. This is actually an innovation. This is a bid'ah and doesn't fall under any category or any rulings from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So it's not accepted. Another thing, there are some kinds of worship or acts of worship that were specifically prohibited in some cases. And so this also doesn't fall under Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala command or His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam command. Like fasting on the day of Eid, or praying an nafil prayer during the times when prayers are prohibited. This thing is not accepted. It doesn't matter. You can say, I stopped, I refrained from eating and drinking from dawn to sunset on the day of Eid, and I wish I'm trying to be the best version of myself in the Eid. No, it's not acceptable. It's haram. And to make things more clear, so what do you say about someone who would just try to come closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by exposing his head or just standing in the sun? Is this an act of worship? No. So this is a principle or a rule. Not every action that is considered a form of worship or a form of coming closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a certain setting is considered an act of worship in all settings. Meaning to say, standing is a rukn in salah. You cannot perform salah without standing. But standing itself is not a form of worship. You can't stand all day, okay, I'm just standing just out of worship for Allah. No, it's not acceptable. Standing is, if standing is part of praying, this is a thing, and standing alone is not a part of worship. So the Prophet ﷺ saw a man standing in the sun. So Rasulullah ﷺ asked, what is this man doing? So it was said that this person swore an oath on himself that he would stand and not sit and not seek any shade. He was just keep standing in the sun and to fast. So the Prophet ﷺ, this was also another nation that this was during the khutbah of Jum'ah. The Rasulullah ﷺ was standing and giving the khutbah, and this man said, okay, maybe the Rasulullah ﷺ is standing and he's talking in the sun and it's hot, and so he's better than us, we should also stand and maybe be exposed to sunlight. So Rasulullah ﷺ told him, no, tell him to sit down, get in the shade, and complete his fasting. And this is narrated by Bukhari and Abu Dawud, rahimahumullah. So the Prophet ﷺ didn't accept standing or exposing oneself to the sun as an act of worship, in spite that standing is a form of worship in other contexts, and exposing oneself to the sun is an act of worship in another concept, like in Arafah or Ihram. So we see that I think that an act of worship in some settings and some certain way is not always an act of worship. So take care of this. Like silence, right? You don't worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by being silent for a day. No, this is not an act of worship. Yeah, you are ordered to be silent when you're praying, especially when the Imam is reading or whatever. Yeah, especially when the Imam is reading. But you are not, there's not an act of worship, just stay silent. So what about if a person does an act of worship? Now we're switching to another topic. A person who's doing an act of worship that is valid in concept. Yeah, something that is sanctioned. You can do it. There's an act of worship. But he's adding or omitting. Added something that is not according to the Sharia, or omitting something of this command. So we say here that this person is violating the Sharia law to the extent of this omission or addition. But is this act of worship acceptable or not? This is another thing. This is another thing to look at. Why you were saying this is another thing? Because there are different cases that fall under this thing. Are we good? That's a lot of moments, so that's why. So again, if a person does something that is an act of worship, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave permission to it, but he added or omitted something from it, added something out of his mind, or omitted something for any reason, is this act of worship acceptable or not? There is no general rule. We should know, because there are many forms of under this case or under this title. So if what was omitted is a part of the worship, or a prerequisite for it, that the Sharia rule that it is mandatory or that it invalidates the action, then this act of worship is invalid. Example: if someone doesn't do ablution, doesn't do wudu for prayers, or pray without making ruku', or doesn't make sujood, or doesn't give enough tuma'nina in sujood or ruku', so this act of worship is rejected. The act of worship itself is correct, is acceptable, but he added or omitted something that makes it invalid now. But if he omits something that doesn't make it invalid, we don't say that it's invalid. We say it's incomplete. An example for this: some scholars see that praying in congregation is mandatory for all the 5 salahs, for all the mandatory prayers. So if one under this opinion or was following this opinion skips the prayer in the masjid, so he omitted something that he sees compulsory, right? But does this invalidate the prayer? No. We say the prayer is valid, but it's incomplete. Okay? This is about omitting. So what about adding? Anything that's added to a form of worship is not acceptable. Okay? Unless it's something that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it permissible to do. This also, the addition sometimes invalidates the act of worship, like intentionally adding a ruku', or intentionally adding a sujood, or intentionally adding a rak'ah. Right? So this thing invalidates the act of worship totally. Other times it doesn't, like someone who's making wudu but is washing everything 4 times or 5 times or 7 times, right? So, or washing it, like washing it the first time was water and the second time was soap, or whatever. It's just adding. This doesn't make the act of worship invalid, but this addition is rejected. Okay, actually, the one who made the 4th wash, the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, فَقَدْ أَسَاءَ وَتَعَدَّى وَظَلَمَ. He did something wrong and exceeded what he was asked to do, and he is unjust in this doing. Okay? Another thing that falls outside what the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Rasuli is when someone does something prohibited in the act of worship. Meaning to say, someone prayed in a stolen outfit. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't order you to steal to pray, or actually prohibited you from stealing. So now someone got this outfit and he used it in praying. Does this invalidate the prayers or not? Okay. There's a lot of debate on this, but some scholars see that differentiate between 2 things. When the prohibition is specific or direct to the act of worship, it invalidates it. And if not. Like praying while carrying najasa, impurities, or without ablution, or praying while you're naked without a reason for it. This prayer becomes invalid, because though all of those are prohibited in the prayers. But if someone is fasting and is lying and backbiting and saying bad words, those are prohibited anyways, regardless of if he's doing siyam or not. So he is taking this sin, but this doesn't invalidate the sawm. So in conclusion, any act of worship is not acceptable unless it has followed this criteria. It's sincere and in accordance with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His messengers sallallahu alaihi wasallam orders. So to elaborate more about following Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His messengers' commands, this means that to do something, it must be in accordance or according to the Sharia in 6 things. First of all, reason. So you don't make something a reason for an act of worship while this is not assigned by Sharia. An example: making celebrations or Eids for reasons that are not, that in Islam we have only 2 Eids. It's Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha. That's it. Nothing more. No more celebrations. Nothing. Whether it's Isra al-Mi'raj, was it middle night of Sha'ban, was it Badr, was it anything? No, there's all of those. The Sharia does not make any of those a reason to make a Eid or a congregation or whatever. Okay. Or assigning a day in the year that you fast. Whatever, no matter which day it is. If it's not assigned by Sharia, it's not acceptable to do it. The other thing is the type of thing. Like, imagine someone wants to make aqiqah for his son by slaughtering a horse. No. Or an ostrich. Ostrich is big, it throws a lot of meat, right? But it's not acceptable. Why? Because the aqiqah, udhiyah, and all of those are assigned to a certain type of animal. Okay? Like camels, buffalo or cow, sheep or goat. That's it. Right? You don't make an udhiyah with a turkey. Right? The third thing that you need to match Sharia or be in according is the amount. Like we mentioned, adding a wash in the ablution or in wudu is not acceptable. And the Prophet ﷺ said that whoever exceeds 3 has exceeded what is permissible, there's something wrong and is unjust in that. Again, as we mentioned, this might invalidate the act of worship or not. Or like, someone who wants to fast day and night. Instead of ending the fasting at Maghrib, no, he wants to complete to Isha or to midnight. And the way how you are told to do this ibadah, how are you told to do this act of worship. Like arranging the prayer. Someone, okay, then the prayer, standing, making ruku', making sujood. Okay, I'll make sujood, then stand, then make ruku', and so on. No, it's not up to you. You have to follow what you are told. And timing. You don't make udhiyah before Salat Eid. You don't pray before the time of prayer. If you do that, it's invalid. Okay? And the place. Like i'tikaf. You don't do i'tikaf in your house or at a school or whatever. I'tikaf means masjid. And if it's including Jum'ah, it should be masjid jama, masjid where a Jum'ah is held. Same thing. You will do tawaf at one place, at Al-Kaaba. That's it. So you don't make a place for worship unless it's assigned. So there's a golden rule here about acts of worship, that any act of worship is prohibited unless proven otherwise. Okay? So it's not up to you to just invent a kind of worship. No. You just follow what you were taught by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this is reversed in transactions. In transactions, and we're going to start talking about it now, everything is halal unless noted otherwise. Okay? Any kind of transaction between people, initially it's halal. Unless something specific tells you not to do that. So we finished talking about worship, acts of worship. Let's talk about transactions, because transactions also can fall outside the legislation or outside the rulings of Islam. So what do we do in this case? So there are some kinds of transactions that change the Sharia law or the Islamic ruling, and this is totally not acceptable. And it has no effect. Meaning to say, let's see in this hadith and you'll understand. So in this hadith, that was narrated by Bukhari rahimahullah ta'ala, that someone hired a person. So this let's say man or person 1 hired person 2. So person 2 was working for person 1. While he was working for person 1, he committed adultery with person 1's wife. Okay, so he had committed zina with the first guy's wife. So they had this, of course, this was known, and they have this problem. And then at the end they said, okay, we'll reach to an agreement. I'll give you 100 sheep and a young or a small child servant, and you leave my son. They said that father of person 2. And this happened. The first person took the 100 sheep and took this young or child slave, and then the father went to the Prophet ﷺ and told him this happened. Or the man number 1 went to the Prophet ﷺ and told him this person I hired him, and then he committed adultery with the wife, and then we reached to this agreement that he gives me this and that. So Rasulullah ﷺ told him, no, this 100 sheep and this servant goes back to this person. So the one who was asking the question was the father of person 2. So told him, no, you're going to take back the 100 sheep and the servant are yours. It's invalid. This transaction is invalid. And your son has to be punished for the zina that he did. He's going to be lashed. That's it. So if you try to get, change the positions of Sharia, change what is happening in Sharia, what is the rulings of Sharia, changing it by something like financial penalties or something, this is not acceptable, and it doesn't do anything. It's invalid, as if didn't happen. So these are the transactions that change the Sharia, the laws. But there are some transactions that are prohibited. Like what? Also, there's a lot of debate on this, but we can narrow it to 2 or 3 categories. The first thing, the transactions that are prohibited for Allah's right, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prohibited this, no matter what. Meaning to say, if those parties that are involved in this transaction agree to it, it's still invalid. They agree, don't agree, it doesn't matter. Like what? Like marrying someone who is prohibited for you to marry. Like, imagine someone wants to marry his sister and they're all okay, the whole family is okay with it. No, it's haram and cannot happen. Right? Or paying interest, riba. You have in this, riba transaction, no. You have to give him back his money. The one who took the interest needs to pay it back. And it's haram for him to take it, even if both of them agree to it. Or the money you get from selling pork or alcohol or idols. Someone who's selling small idols, this is haram. Another thing, or another prohibited transaction, the transactions that are prohibited for the sake of the person because it might be unjust for the person. It might be an abuse for him, or it's hard for him to do it, to have it, or it will put him in hardship. So if this is the case and both agree to it, it's not invalid. Like what? Someone use, like for example, me and my brother Muhammadi. Okay? I saw a nice car and I know that Muhammad was planning to buy a car, for example. So I go buy this car and give it to him. Okay, I bought this car for you, pay him. What? You didn't take my consent, you didn't ask for my permission for that. Right? So initially it's not accepted, but if he agrees to it, so Jazakallah khair, actually I was looking for a similar car and he had approved it, the transaction goes and it's approved. Or if someone give one or two of his, someone has some children and he gives one of them some kind of a gift or something, it's not acceptable. But if the siblings say, okay, we agree, this brother or this sister had been in long of hardships and he had a miserable year, we are good, okay, give him whatever you want, we don't care. So this doesn't become invalid, it's acceptable too. Sometimes the prohibition is just for his own sake, and because it might cause him hardship, and the other party, whether he agrees or not, is not considered. Like, imagine if someone has a slave when they were slaves, and he want to set this person want to set his slave free. The slave doesn't have a say in that. If tells him you're free, then he's free. That's it. Okay. What brought us here? Yeah, I got straight in this. Yeah, so things like this, like similarly, if someone divorces his wife, she's divorced, right? So if someone makes a bid'ah divorce, you know what is a bid'ah divorce, right? You know the sunnah divorce and bid'ah divorce? Okay, sunnah divorce is when someone divorces his wife after finishing her menses before having an intercourse with her. This is the sunnah. Anything other than that is bid'ah. So he's making her, he divorces her after having an intercourse, this is bid'ah. Divorcing her in her menses, this is bid'ah. But this doesn't mean that it doesn't fall. He did something wrong and haram, and it falls. Because he was given this grace, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told you don't do that. Why? Because you might regret it. If you're just angry now and you just do it now, you might regret it later. So take your time. If she has her period, let it pass. Then think about it. If you still didn't get her period but you had intercourse with her, it means that things are still good between you. Let things cool down. Let her get her period. Let's get to the next round and decide. If he doesn't want to do that and he just out of anger, does it, then you're being held accountable. So it's bid'ah, and it's haram, and it's effective. Okay, so this is what I wanted to say about this hadith. Tonight, alhamdulillah, I don't know how long we took, but